Imagine you are the head of Hasbro in 1991. You have just spent millions of dollars building what you think is going to be the next big toy franchise. You have a cartoon, you have a comic book, you have a video game from Konami, you have 10 action figures and 2 vehicles ready to ship to stores across America. You have everything in place, and then Christmas comes, and your toy line dies. Not because kids did not like it, not because the cartoon was bad, not because the toys were poor quality. It died because of one mistake, one single distribution error. Someone ordered too many of the wrong figures and not enough of the right ones. The villain figures piled up on store shelves. The hero figures that kids actually wanted were nowhere to be found. Stores ran out of space. No new orders came in. And just like that, the whole franchise collapsed. The creator of the franchise, a writer named Larry Hama, has talked about this moment in interviews. He watched everything he had built fall apart because of a warehouse decision that had nothing to do with the quality of the work. The cartoon was canceled after 13 episodes. The second wave of toys, already designed, already prototyped, some already fully packaged, was never released. The NES game came out and sold well, but without a cartoon, without toys on the shelves, nobody knew what it was. 2 years later, Nintendo released Star Fox, a game about anthropomorphic animals in space fighting an evil empire. It became a massive franchise that is still going today. Bucky O'Hare got there first, and almost nobody remembers it. This is the full story of Bucky O'Hare. The cartoon, the toys, the game, the collapse, and why people who do remember it are absolutely passionate about it to this day. Bucky O'Hare did not start as a toy. It started as a comic book idea in 1978. A writer named Larry Hama came up with the concept while he was working as an editor at DC Comics. Larry Hama is one of the most important figures in 80s toy history. He is the man who wrote nearly all of the G.I. Joe file cards and created the character backstories for that entire franchise. He is the reason G.I. Joe felt like a real world with real characters instead of just a bunch of plastic soldiers. So when Hama created Bucky O'Hare, he brought that same level of thought and detail to the concept. The idea was a space opera set in a parallel universe called the Aniverse. In this universe, all the intelligent creatures are animals: hares, ducks, cats, bears, and on the villain side, toads. The Toad Empire is controlled by a supercomputer called Complex. Complex has essentially brainwashed the entire toad population into becoming a military force, and they are now conquering the galaxy. Against them stands the United Animals Federation, and specifically, one green hare named Bucky O'Hare, captain of a small spaceship called the Righteous Indignation. Hama could not get the comic published right away. He shopped it around for years. Finally, in 1984, a publisher called Continuity Comics, run by comic book artist Neil Adams, agreed to run it. The first Bucky O'Hare stories appeared in an anthology comic in 1984, and a standalone graphic novel was published in 1986. The comic was not a huge hit, but it built a small, passionate fan base. The concept was strong. The characters were likable, and it had something a lot of comics did not have at the time: a sense of humor mixed with genuine adventure. For a few years, it stayed underground, and then in 1991, everything changed at once. A cartoon was commissioned, Hasbro agreed to make a toy line, Konami signed on to make a video game. Suddenly, Bucky O'Hare was not a cult comic book. It was a full media franchise ready to compete with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And for about 6 months, it looked like it might actually work. The cartoon launched in September 1991. It was called Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, and it was produced by Sunbow Productions, the same company that made the original G.I. Joe and Transformers cartoons in the 80s. The show had a 13-episode first season, and it told a single connected story across all of them. This was not common for cartoons in 1991. Most Saturday morning shows were completely self-contained episodes that could be watched in any order. Bucky O'Hare had an actual story arc that progressed from week to week. Here is the basic setup. Bucky O'Hare is the captain of the Righteous Indignation. His crew includes Jenny, a cat from the planet Aldebaran with mysterious psychic powers; Deadeye Duck, a 4-armed mallard who carries 4 guns at the same time and is one of the best shots in the Aniverse; AFC Blinky, a one-eyed android; and Bruiser, a huge gorilla-like warrior who was once a prisoner of the Toad Empire. In the very first episode, a human boy named Willie DeWitt accidentally gets pulled through a dimensional portal from Earth into the Aniverse. He is a 12-year-old science prodigy, and his knowledge of physics turns out to be extremely useful. He joins the crew and becomes part of the family. Willie is an important character because he is the audience surrogate. He is the normal kid from our world who gets dropped into this wild universe. The show uses him to explain things to younger viewers without it feeling forced. The villain is not just one villain. The Toad Empire is a whole system. Complex is the AI that runs everything. Cold, logical, and genuinely threatening. The Toad Air Marshal is the military commander who carries out the attacks. Toadborg is the half-robot soldier, the heavy hitter. They all have different personalities and different roles, which made the villain side feel layered in a way that a lot of cartoons from this era did not manage. The show tackled some surprisingly serious themes for a kids' cartoon. The Toads are not evil because they chose to be. They are enslaved by a computer system that controls their thoughts and their society. The concept of mass media and technology being used to control populations is woven into the story in a way that worked both as straightforward action-adventure and as something older kids and adults could appreciate on a deeper level. The theme song was incredible. Upbeat, catchy, impossible to get out of your head. If you heard it once, you remembered it. Many people who forgot everything else about Bucky O'Hare still remember that theme song. The cartoon ran for 13 episodes and ended on a cliffhanger. Season 2 was already being planned, scripts had been written, and then Hasbro pulled out and it was all over. The Hasbro toy line launched in 1991 alongside the cartoon, and the toys were genuinely good. There were 10 action figures in the first and only wave, all at the standard 5-inch scale that was common for action figures at the time. Each figure was well sculpted, had solid articulation, and came with accessories. Larry Hama himself wrote the character file cards that came with each figure, the same thing he had done for G.I. Joe, which gave each character a personality and backstory that made kids want to know more. Bucky O'Hare, the main character. Green hair, captain of the righteous indignation. He came with a laser pistol and had a confident action hero look that worked perfectly as a figure. Dead-Eye Duck, the four-armed duck gunfighter. This was one of the most visually interesting figures in the line. 4 arms, 4 guns. Kids loved the concept. Willie DeWitt, the human boy genius. His figure came with a photon accelerator backpack, which in the show was the device that allowed him to travel between dimensions. AFC Blinky, the one-eyed android. A small figure, but packed with detail. Bruiser, the big gorilla warrior. The heavy of the team. He was larger than the other figures and visually imposing. Commander Dogstar, the captain of another ship in the United Animals Federation. He was a dog, and his figure had a noble military look. Toadborg, the half-robot enforcer of the Toad Empire. This was probably the best-looking villain figure in the line. Heavy armor, mechanical details, and genuinely intimidating. Toad Air Marshal, the main military commander. He came with a lot of accessories and had a pompous, over-decorated general look that matched the character perfectly. Storm Toad Trooper, the standard soldier of the Toad Empire. The rank-and-file bad guy that you could buy multiples of. Al Negator, a large alligator mercenary who works for the Toad Empire. He was one of the bigger figures in the line and had a menacing design. 2 vehicles were released. The Toad Croaker was the good guy's submarine-style ship. The Toad Double Bubble was the enemy fighter vehicle. Both were well-designed and scaled to fit the figures. Here is the most interesting part of the toy line. Jenny, the cat first mate who was one of the main characters of the entire franchise, was not included in the first wave. She was designed, she was sculpted. Photos exist of a fully painted, fully packaged Jenny figure that was essentially ready to go. She was planned for the second wave of figures. The second wave was canceled. Jenny never came out. For 30 years, Jenny was the most wanted missing figure in the Bucky O'Hare collector world. She existed as a prototype. She was finished. But kids who watched the show and loved the character never got her toy. In 2017, a company called Boss Fight Studio got the license and finally released Jenny as a proper action figure, 26 years after the cartoon ended. The demand for that figure was immediate and intense. That is how much people cared about this franchise. Now we get to the part that is genuinely painful to talk about. The Bucky O'Hare toy line did not fail because of bad toys. It did not fail because kids did not like the show. It failed because of one catastrophic distribution mistake during the 1991 holiday season. Here is what happened. When stores order toys, they order a mix of figures from the wave. They decide how many of each figure to stock. Somebody, at the distribution level, ordered far too many of the villain figures and not enough of the hero figures. Specifically, the Toad Air Marshal figure and the Storm Toad Trooper figure were massively overstocked. Store shelves were full of these two villains. Meanwhile, Bucky himself and Willie DeWitt, the figures kids actually wanted, the main characters from the show, were understocked and sold out almost immediately. A kid would walk into the toy aisle, want to buy Bucky O'Hare because they had been watching the cartoon, and find only Toad soldiers staring back at them. They would leave without buying anything. This happened over and over across thousands of stores. From the outside, it looked like Bucky O'Hare toys were not selling. The shelves were full. But the shelves were full of the wrong things. Stores saw full shelves and did not reorder. Hasbro saw poor sales numbers. The franchise was declared a failure. The second wave of figures, already designed and prototyped, was canceled. The cartoon lost its Hasbro funding. Season 2 was killed. Larry Hama has spoken about this directly. He watched the franchise collapse because of a logistics error, not because the audience rejected it. The show had fans. The toys, the ones that actually got stocked properly, sold. But the system failed, and there was no way back from it. It is one of the most frustrating stories in 90s toy history. A franchise that was genuinely good, with genuine fan support, killed by a warehouse mistake. Here is the irony of the whole story. In early 1992, just as the cartoon was ending and the toys were being cleared out of stores, Konami released the Bucky O'Hare video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it was outstanding. The game was made by a team at Konami that would later go on to found Treasure, the legendary studio behind games like Gunstar Heroes and Alien Soldier. They put everything into it. The game is a side-scrolling action platformer. You start as Bucky, but as you complete levels and rescue your captured crew members, each one becomes playable. Deadeye can fire in 4 directions at once, Jenny has a powerful psychic energy blast, Blinky can float, Willie has a wide beam cannon. You had to figure out which character to use in each situation. The design was clever, the gameplay was fast and satisfying, and the difficulty was very challenging but fair. Retro Gamer magazine, in a reader's poll, named the Bucky O'Hare NES game one of the top 25 best NES games of all time. Not top 25 among licensed games. Top 25 among all NES games ever made. It belongs in the same conversation as Mega Man, Contra, and Castlevania. The game sold well, critics loved it, but by the time it came out, the franchise around it was already gone. Kids who played the game often did not even know there had been a cartoon. The game became a cult classic in a vacuum. There was also a Bucky O'Hare arcade game by Konami in 1992, a beat-em-up in the style of The Simpsons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade games. 4-player, colorful, loud, fun. It shows up in retro arcade collections today and always draws a crowd of people asking what it is. Because the toy line only had one wave and was canceled early, Bucky O'Hare figures are harder to find than most 90s toys. The collector market is active and prices reflect the scarcity. Here is what things sell for based on current eBay sold listings. A loose Bucky O'Hare figure with no accessories, $15 to $40. Most of the hero figures sell in this range when loose. Villain figures like the Storm Toad Trooper are more common and cheaper. You can often find them for $10 to $20 loose. Al Negator loose tends to go for $20 to $40 because he is a larger figure. A complete Bucky figure with his laser pistol and all original accessories, $40 to $80. Deadeye Duck complete with all 4 guns, $50 to $90. Toadborg complete is popular with collectors because the figure looks great on display. Complete examples sell for $60 to $100. Willie DeWitt complete with his Photon Accelerator pack, $50 to $80. Bruiser complete, $40 to $70. Here is the figure that killed the franchise. The Toad Air Marshal was massively overstocked and sat on shelves unsold. You would think this means he is cheap, but his accessories are complex and frequently lost, so a truly complete Toad Air Marshal with every medal, every weapon, every small piece is surprisingly hard to find. Complete examples sell for $60 to $100. Because the line was canceled after one wave and stores were clearing stock, many figures were discounted and sold off. Not many ended up sealed and preserved. A mint-on-card Bucky O'Hare figure in good card condition has sold for $150 to $300. Deadeye Duck sealed, $150 to $250. Toadborg sealed, $100 to $200. Any sealed figure from this line in genuinely good condition is worth serious money to collectors. Jenny was never released in 1991. Original prototype Jennies from the Hasbro era almost never come up for sale. When they do, they sell for extraordinary amounts. These are genuine production artifacts, not regular toys. If you want a Jenny figure you can actually use, the 2017 Boss Fight Studio release is your best option. These are excellent quality modern figures that are still available new. They are not cheap. Boss Fight Studio figures sell for $40 to $80 new, but they are the closest thing to the figure that should have existed in 1991. The Bucky Hare NES game is one of the more valuable NES cartridges from the early 90s. A cartridge only with no box. $30 to $60. Complete in box with manual and original packaging. $100 to $200 in good condition. Sealed, $400 or more. The arcade game boards and cabinets are rare. If you ever see a Bucky Hare arcade cabinet, you are looking at something that not many people own. VHS tapes of the cartoon were released by Family Home Entertainment. A complete set of the original US VHS tapes in good condition has sold for $50 to $120. They are a nice display piece for fans of the series, and a reminder of how hard it used to be to own a cartoon when you could not just stream it. Bucky Hare had everything: a 15-year-old comic book with a passionate fan base, a well-produced cartoon with a real story, 10 solid action figures, one of the best NES games ever made, and a concept, spacefaring animal warriors fighting a fascist toad empire run by an AI that was genuinely ahead of its time. And it died because someone ordered too many toad soldiers and not enough green rabbits. That is the whole story. Not a failure of creativity, not a failure of quality, a failure of boxes in a warehouse. Star Fox came out 2 years later with almost the same concept and became a franchise that Nintendo is still selling today. Bucky Hare was there first. If you watched this cartoon as a kid, leave a comment. Do you remember the theme song? Did you have any of the figures? And did you know about Jenny never being released? Next video on this channel, we are going back to the Mighty Max era and covering something even more people have forgotten. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, stay nostalgic.